Once upon a time, and a long time ago it was, in the city of Dublin, in the land of Ireland, there was a man with a pen. And this man with the pen gave it to a little fella, who wrote many a poem, limerick, and story. And the poems, limericks, and stories spread to the four corners of the world. It was a square world. And the poems, limericks, and stories that spread to the four corners of the world made the earth round, into a great ball surrounded by clouds, as the great man once said. Near the ball there was a moon, which added romance and imagination to the poems, limericks, and stories, and around all this were stars and planets, and they formed a system called the solar system, and it was solar and alone. And writers came along and looked to the moon and beyond, to the stars and planets in the solar system for inspiration, and when they got the inspiration they needed, they used the pen to write, for that is what a pen is for. And the man with the pen looked down at the writers whenever they were in their blocks, and gave them the start that they needed. And this is how the writers of Ireland told the people of the world the absolute truth, which they had found on the wall of Bewley's coffee shop in Grafton Street, Dublin. For there were many in Bewley's would put the world to right in an afternoon's confabulation. But the writer was always the little fella who had to meet the big bad bullies when he was at school, the big bad bullies that made him take part in their big bad bumpy games, which would frighten the poor little fella at that very early and tender age when all the boys had to learn to head the greasy leather orb, which they called a football, had to go into the big bad world, which they called a school, had to find out that most of the bullies were the teachers who took great pleasure and unnatural delight in striking many a young child across the backside with their canes and slippers. But the little writer would get his own back on the big bad bullies, for he would write about them. Sometimes, but not often, the big bad bully would read what the little writer had written and knock the bejesus out of him, break his glasses, knock the pen out of the little fella's hand, and burn his books at 451 degrees Fahrenheit. But there was always somebody to pick up that pen and look up towards the stars in the heaven where they would seek the same stimulation, and the man with the pen would look down and give it.